Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, everybody, for your patience today. Today, we are, want to welcome everyone to the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Madam Clerk, we do have all members present except for the Majority Leader Canizaro. Please mark her present when she arrives. A few housekeeping matters. I want to ask everyone to silence any of their phones or tablets, any electronic devices you have with you. If testifying, we ask that everyone please sign in at the table by the door. If you have a business card, we ask that you provide it to the secretary. For those joining us either on the internet or via phone, we ask you to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. When you are testifying, please turn on the microphone and clearly state and spell your name. And if you're affiliated with an organization or you represent an organization, we'd ask you to let us know who you're affiliated with and who you represent so that we have a complete record. Please turn off the microphone when you are done speaking. If you have any handouts, please provide 20 copies for our committee secretary. Electronic copies should have been submitted in PDF form to our committee manager already. The Legislative Operations and Elections Committee very often takes on some contentious issues. We all certainly care about these issues, but we expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we vigorously disagree with the bill sponsor or proponents or opponents of the bill. We still expect courtesy and respect to all parties and members of the committee, members of the public, and LCB staff. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts on the Nellis system and other documents pertaining to the bills. Please do not view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Legislators use their laptops as part of the modern legislative process. Public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting. Each person wishing to make public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. The public comment period has to do with items that are not on the bills we're considering. With that, I'd like to open the hearing on Assembly Bill 286. Assemblywoman Miller, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon, almost evening. I just want to thank you, Chair Orenshaw, for having me today and for letting me go first, and to committee members for listening as I present this bill. For the record, I'm Brittany Miller, and I represent Assembly District 5 in Clark County. I am pleased to have the opportunity to be before you today and present Assembly Bill 286. This measure expands access to the voting process for individuals in the custody of a county or city jail. Our democracy is strongest when every voter can participate in the electoral process. However, for a long time, it's been difficult for certain groups of voters, specifically those in the custody of a county or city jail, to vote. Before I go any further, I want to explain the particular important distinction between jail and prison. I say this because we often use these terms synonymously, but they are actually quite different. Prison is where those convicted of a felony will serve out their sentence. And that sentence can be from 1 year to life without parole, meaning this person may never leave prison. On the other hand, jail is a temporary place where people in custody are awaiting trial. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, approximately 2 out of every 3 people in the United States jail are awaiting trial and have not been convicted. Thus, they still have the right to vote. Additionally, some people in jail may never be convicted of a crime. Their case may be dismissed, or they can stay in trial and it will be acquitted. Others are serving time for misdemeanor offenses, which is less than 1 year, which in Nevada and 43 other states does not impact their individual eligibility to vote. Nevada only prohibits persons convicted of a felony from voting unless their right to vote has been restored pursuant to NRS 213. Even though jail is temporary and may never result in a conviction, these individuals are in custody, meaning they cannot leave the facility to vote at a polling place. They often do not have the necessary information to register to vote, nor access to their mail ballot that would have otherwise been delivered to their home. To be clear, this bill does not authorize any person who by law is ineligible to vote or ineligible to register to vote to do so. It does not authorize a person convicted of a felony to vote in prison. Additionally, the bill does not revise any of the provisions governing the qualifications for voting or registering to vote in this state. Assembly Bill 286 simply expands access to the voting process to Nevadans who are legally entitled to vote or register to vote, but who are detained in a county or city jail. These individuals still have a constitutional right to participate in the electoral process, and we need to make sure that they have sufficient access to exercise that right. The bill ensures that individuals will have access to voting during early vote for all primary, special, and general elections, as well as Election Day. Depending on the capabilities or technological capabilities, to be specific, of each individual county or city jail, individuals may register and/or vote through the Secretary of State's approved electronic transmission system for elections. If the facility does not have the capability, then absentee ballots will be provided to and utilized by the elector. Additionally, this bill will actually just codify many of the activities that are currently occurring in our county or city jails. What is really sought is the consistency of a secured voting infrastructure. And I say that because, again, while many of these activities are already happening in our city and county jails, we know that that's really subject to the current leadership in each facility. A few points I would like to reiterate before addressing the actual policy in the bill. Again, the intention is not to make county or city jails a polling place. There will not be voting booths installed in any county or city jail. Voters can use absentee ballots. And we say this because, again, not every facility has Wi-Fi capability to access the e-system. We did work extensively with corrections and law enforcement because we do appreciate security issues and know that they must remain a priority for everyone's safety. The safety of both the persons in custody and, of course, our officers and staff. That, therefore, upon request, electors would be provided an absentee ballot or registration form. In the bill, it does provide individuals in custody of a county or city jail who are eligible to register to vote the same timeframes to vote as other Nevadans, to both register to vote and vote on Election Day. In addition to voting on Election Day, the bill authorizes eligible individuals in custody to vote or register to vote through the Secretary of State's approved system of approved electronic transmission known as the E-system, which stands for the Effective Absentee System for Elections. This is currently provided to our military and overseas voters who can use the system to vote, request a mail ballot, and then electronically transmit their ballot back to their election office for processing. In 2021, the use of ease was expanded to voters with disabilities so that they can cast their vote privately and independently. Assembly Bill 286 would further expand the use of ease for those in county and city jails. In the instance that someone would like to register to vote, they may either request their ID, they can request that their ID be brought in from a family member if it's not there on site, or they may request that someone within the facility, if it is held there on site, provide it to them. Assembly Bill 286 also expands access to absentee ballot voting for individuals in the county and city jails. The jail must allow the elector to complete the ballot with a reasonable amount of privacy, and staff may not open the absentee ballot once it is voted and sealed by the elector. If a county clerk has established a ballot drop box at the jail as authorized by the bill, the elector may return his or her ballot in that drop box. The city or county jail will coordinate with the registrars on when and how to pick it up and have it delivered. Either way, a chain of custody will be completed to document the security of the ballots. This reassures the elector and protects staff as they requested. These forms are currently being utilized. The bill also imposes certain reporting requirements on the jails so that the Secretary of State has information on the process used to comply with the requirements of the bill and a summary of any complaints received from individuals relating to voting or registering to vote at the facilities. Ultimately, Assembly Bill 286 will require each county or city jail to develop a consistent infrastructure to allow those who are eligible to vote or register to vote the ability to do so by the e-system, or through the absentee ballot, or through paper registration form. Part of this process includes coordination with county registrars and ensures that this process ensuring that this process and necessary voting information which would pertain to election information on candidates and statewide measures, are also provided. It's also required that updated information on the process and procedures of the voting or registration process is provided in inmate handbooks. AB 286 requires a relative amount of privacy as the elector casts their vote and protects them from any threat, retribution, or intimidation for requesting or exercising their right to vote. There will be no electioneering or campaigning in the county or city jail. Again, this legislation brought forward is to ensure that those awaiting trial can exercise their constitutional right to vote, that we as Nevadans preserve the sentiment of innocent until proven guilty, recognizing that some may never be convicted at all. We are simply ensuring that the eligible electors have the ability to vote in the same early, special, primary, or general elections that they would have had access to if they were not being temporarily incarcerated, or had they had the ability to visit the polling place or access their mail ballot themselves. With that, Chair, I'd also like to let everyone know that this bill, as you know, because you've read the bill, it does have 22 co-sponsors. When this bill passed out of the Assembly, it passed with extreme bipartisan support. In other words, there were only 3 no votes out of the Assembly on the floor. And we even had one of our Republican colleagues stand up and give a floor speech in support of this measure. So my hopes today would be that the Senate would support and choose to support in the very same fashion. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill and for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Assemblywoman Miller, thank you for presenting this important bill. I think so many of us just in past years, didn't really think about this problem. And certainly there's some clerks and registrars who tried to make sure that folks, while they were waiting trial, waiting resolution of their case, could still participate and vote. That doesn't happen everywhere. This is such an important bill, and I'm glad to hear there was such bipartisan support over in your House. Members, any questions for Assemblywoman Miller? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Is there anyone else you'd like me to call up as part of your overall presentation, or do you want me to, I see Ms. Prasad Zamora on Zoom. Ms. Prasad Zamora, would you like to state your name for the record and proceed?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw and committee members. For the record, my name is Emily Prasad Zamora, and that's spelled EMILYPERSAUD-ZAMORA. I'm the Executive Director of Silver State Voices that also leads the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. And today we are here in strong support of AB 286. I'd like to just begin by thanking Assemblywoman Miller for sponsoring this legislation and all of the work that she has put in to make this happen. It's an incredibly important policy, and the impact that it will have on community members cannot be emphasized enough. In collaboration with our community partner, Mass Liberation Project, we understand the need for this bill. Over the past few elections, we have sent letters to people detained in Clark County Detention Center, as well as Washoe County Detention Center. Our efforts revealed a disheartening reality that numerous eligible voters remain unaware of their unimpaired constitutional right to vote. Nevada voters retain their constitutional right to the ballot box, no matter where they might be during an election. Out-of-state voters can request a mail ballot to be sent to a new address, and military voters and overseas voters can use the e-system for voting. It is essential that eligible voters who are detained in jail, awaiting trial, and yet to be convicted are afforded the same opportunity to exercise their constitutional right. Nevada should be doing everything in its power to help facilitate the right to vote for individuals who have not yet been convicted of any crime. And AB 286 serves precisely that purpose. Having voters detained in jail utilize the EASE program helps safeguard the right to vote for individuals who have not yet been convicted of any crime. Nevada's EASE program, effective absentee system for elections, is a safe and secure method of voting. Our Constitution clearly states that everyone is considered innocent until proven guilty. Additionally, It explicitly grants the innocent the right to vote. These principles reflect the bedrock of our democracy and ensure that every voice is heard. By supporting this bill, you're not only upholding the Constitution, you're also fostering inclusivity and fairness within our society. AB 286 is about ensuring that as many eligible voters exercise their constitutional right to our democratic process, no matter where they are during early voting or election day. Thank you so much for your time, and I urge the committee to vote yes on AB 286.
Thank you very much, Ms. Prasad-Zamora. Thanks for your testimony. Assemblyman Miller, anyone else you'd like me to call up here as part of your general presentation, or would you prefer I go to support?
Yes, I would like to call up Attar Hasibullah, the Executive Director of the ACLU of Nevada.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Hasibullah. Thank you for joining us today in the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
For the record, Attar Hasibullah, ACLU of Nevada. Obviously, happy to answer any questions this committee would have, but we've been working with the Assemblywoman for quite some time on this, and the most important thing to take away from this bill is that we still remain in a state of time where some folks don't understand the difference between jails and prisons, and that really becomes a core component of why we wanted this policy in place. Right now, without any sort of policies or practices that are in place, there's civil liberties deprivations that are continuing to occur because individuals still maintain their fundamental right to vote. Nothing about this bill would modify that portion. In fact, what this would do is allow for that process to be put in place to make sure that the parameters are structured such that we have the ability to move forward and guarantee the right to all voters who are eligible to vote still without any sort of additions. I think there was concerns, we got some feedback at some point that this would expand the pool of potential voters. It's just not true. And every county ends up in a different position. Cities end up in a different position in terms of what municipalities are able to do here. And so it really takes into account the unique needs of what's occurring. We do really want to thank the bill sponsor for bringing this forward and working with us on this for the better part of the last year. This is, unfortunately, we recognize when it comes to civil liberties issues, there's all sorts of rights forfeited. Civil asset forfeiture remains a challenge for us as well when you're giving up rights without having been adjudicated guilty of any crimes. And so we really want to see this come through, and happy to answer any questions that the committee might have on any technical specifics there.
Thank you, Mr. Hasibullah. And committee, I've neglected to ask if there were any questions either for Mr. Hasibullah or Ms. Prasad-Zamora, who was on Zoom, and I think we might still be there. Any questions, senators? No questions. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. I'd like to open it up for support now of Assembly Bill 286. Whoever would like to speak in support, we'll start here in Carson City, and then we'll go to the phone lines. Good afternoon. Whoever would like to begin, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Isaac Tenorio with Strategy 360 on behalf of Campaign Legal Center. We urge the committee to support AB 286 to affirm Nevada's commitment to the principle that democracy works best when all eligible voters can participate. The majority of Nevada voters in Nevada's jails, roughly 7,000 people, likely remain eligible to vote, yet face incredible challenges in doing so. Jail voters often do not know if they are eligible to vote or how to cast their ballot while incarcerated. They cannot easily access the internet, stamps, pens, or even information about when the election is and who is on the ballot. It is challenging to get voters' registration forms, in part because it can take days or even a week for a single piece of mail to be processed. For these and other reasons, there will be people in Nevada's jails who will be unable to exercise their constitutional right to vote each election cycle. Voting gives incarcerated people a sense of power, agency, and connection to their community, and it can mitigate the negative collateral consequences that stem from even short periods in jail. This is why AB 286 is important. First, it requires jails to create policies in coordination with local clerks. This is a best practice in ending jail-based disenfranchisement. AB 286 includes provisions for eligible voters to use the approved electronic transmission system to register, apply for, and cast ballots in jails where it is available, helping to avoid delays and reduce barriers to access. Lastly, AB 286 reinforces eligible voters' rights to a secret ballot, and it makes a commitment to providing voters with critical election information, including about their eligibility. For these reasons and more, we respectfully urge the committee to support AB 286. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Dr. Tenorio. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Greetings, good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw and honorable members of the committee. My name is Jagada Chambers, Jagada, and I am the Rights Restoration Coordinator with Silver State Voices, which has consistently invested in the civic engagement and education of directly impacted voters over the past 4 years. I strongly petition your support for Assembly Bill 286. Over the past 30 months, I have engaged with directly impacted folks on a continuing basis. I know firsthand how few directly impacted Nevadans know that they are eligible to vote. Expanding this basic knowledge is the greatest victory of Assembly Bill 286. Making voters aware they still have a right to participate in our electoral process could have a profound impact on their individual lives and play an important role in avoiding recidivism. Managing disdain society has for incarcerated individuals and not succumbing to the scarlet letter were monumental hurdles for me personally after nearly 2,000 days of incarceration. I've understood for a long time that society will always see my worst 5 minutes instead of my best 5 years. My constant efforts to put my past in my past led me into spaces and forums of electoral politics. I cared long before my right to vote was restored, yet once restored, I instantly felt validated. My efforts could now be accompanied with my choice, with my voice. I did not know how it would transform my family's life by providing me my post-incarceration gainful employment. I only stood by the power that a vote has in one's commitment to their community. I still, without waver, stand on that power the vote has and its potential to adjust a person's perspective on their belonging in our society. Supporting this legislation will support someone's hope that society will be able to see them and their situation as innocent until proven guilty. I ask each of you to support AB 286. Thank you much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chambers. Thank you for sharing your personal story with us. Thank you. Mr. Goodman, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Yes, Chair Orenshaw, members of the committee, Doug Goodman, Doug-Goodman. I'm founder, executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. I'm not going to repeat what Assemblywoman Miller so eloquently explained why this bill is needed. I'm just going to add that the ability to cast one's vote, if you are an eligible voter, must be protected. And where some of these things are already done, protecting this ability in statute is very important. With the ease process added to it, this all makes sense because, in fact, last session, this body extended the ease process to the disabled. So there is trust in the system, and so I urge your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goodman. Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Amy Koo, Amykoo, and I am the Acting Deputy Director with One API in Nevada, testifying in support of AB 286. We advocate for the growing AA-NHPI community here in Nevada. According to the Prison Policy Institute, only a fraction of people in jail will receive a prison sentence. We also know that through multiple studies that people who spend more time in jail are the most vulnerable in our communities, including poor people who are unable to post bail. One of the core founding values of our Constitution is innocent until proven guilty. As voting rights advocates, we believe that full access to voting for all eligible voters is needed for equality and a functioning democracy. We urge the committee to support AB 286 and thank the bill sponsor, Assemblywoman Miller, for presenting this important bill. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Good afternoon, Ms. Willett. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Willett, Willett, and I'm the grassroots manager at All Voting is Local Action, an organization that exists to expose and dismantle threats to voter freedom in order to make voting safe, fair, and accessible. Able Action Nevada is also a member of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition, and we are in strong support of AB 286. Through our organization, we have frequently heard of instances of difficulty for people voting who are in jail. On Election Day in 2020, a family member of a voter who was detained in jail emailed our organization asking if there was any way for this family member to vote. Our organization did everything that we could, but navigating a way for this voter to vote proved impossible in 2020. Even though Nevada provides multiple options to vote and same-day voter registration, voters who are in detention centers do not currently have fair and equal access to voting. AB 286 would provide voting and voter registration access to Nevadans currently in detention centers by providing voting access in detention centers, allowing detained individuals to register to vote using the e-system, and allowing their family members to bring their vote-by-mail ballot to them. In conclusion, AB 286 would only provide more access to voting and voter registration to any individual who is detained during an election. Fair and equal access to voting is the Nevada way, and we strongly encourage you to support AB 286. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Oren Shaw and committee members. My name is Nicholas Shepak, S-H-E-P-A-C-K. I'm the State Deputy Director of the Fines and Fees Justice Center. We want to thank the Assemblywoman for bringing this piece of legislation and touch on a group of individuals that we haven't really talked about today. Due to Nevada's ununified court system, no standardized ability to pay assessment, and a hodgepodge of opportunities for community service across the state. Individuals, almost solely poor individuals across our state, often fall behind on payments on their fines and fees. If you are behind on your payments with a misdemeanor, a warrant is levied for your arrest. Every day, thousands of individuals spend days, weekends, sometimes up to a week in jail for failure to pay fines and fees on crimes, misdemeanors they have already been adjudicated against them. If this happens during an election, that individual could miss their opportunity to vote simply for being unable to pay their fines and fees. Likely, that will be turned into time served credit or will be paid upon release. We strongly believe that democracy should not stop just because you have an inability to pay the government some money, and nobody should be too poor to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shepak. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Tony Ramirez for the record. I'm here on behalf of our membership at Make the Road Nevada. In the interest of time, I just want to ditto what the previous speakers have said. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dakota Hoskins. I'm the political director for SEIU Local 1107. SEIU is proud to support AB 286 as it allows those that have not been convicted of a crime to cast a vote and allow those voices to be heard while they wait trial or a court date. SEIU believes that everyone that is legally able to vote should have the ability to do so, and we believe this is another great bill to improve Nevada's election system and access to the ballot box. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. Anyone else here in Carson City who wishes to speak in support? Okay, not seeing anyone. Broadcasting on the phone lines. Anyone who's in support of Assembly Bill 286?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of AB 286, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue, or raise your hand in the Zoom app.
Hello, my name is Jovan Jackson, and I'm in support of this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Aria Flores. And I'm here on behalf of Chispa Nevada with the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. And we are in support of AB 286. Apologies. We are in support of 286. 286 will allow the use of the systems in place, such as the Nevada effective absentee system for elections, to be accessible to incarcerated folks to pre-register to vote, register to vote, and cast their ballots. With this in mind, it is also important to highlight that these individuals that have been incarcerated have not been convicted and have a constitutional right to be able to vote. Furthermore, this is also an issue of social and economic inequalities. Many people in county and city jails are in this position due to their inability to afford their bail. Regardless of one's financial means, voters should have the right to vote and be a part of our democracy. AB 286 is carving a pathway for a more equitable and just democratic process. I encourage you to support AB 286. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw and committee members. For the record, my name is Brian Harris, and I'm calling to testify on behalf of Battle Born Progress. Being a member of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition, we are in support of AB 286. Voting is a way for individuals to have their say in the future and a right that should never be infringed upon. People who have not been convicted of a crime still have their constitutional right and are still members of their community. They still have a stake in policies and decisions that affect them as well. Making sure they can still access their right to vote gives them a voice in shaping their future. We urge your support of this amazing piece of legislation, and I want to thank Assemblywoman Miller and all other supporters of this bill for pushing it forward. Please support AB 286.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Jessica Munger, M-U-N-G-E-R, here on behalf of Silver State Equality, Nevada's statewide LGBTQ+ civil rights organization, and we are in support of AB 286. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, please state your name. Yes, please state your name for the record and proceed.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Yesenia Moya, Y-E-S-E-N-I-A-M-O-Y-A. I am calling in support of AB 286 because as it stands, folks can vote in city and county jails, and this will help to ensure we can use an accessible process to create that access within city and county jails. So if you could please ensure that, our voices are heard, pass this bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cassandra Charles, and I'm the campaign director with Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, here in support of Assembly Bill 286. At Plan, we believe our democracy is most vibrant the more people are able to participate in it. In elections prior, we have worked closely with the Mass Liberation Project to mail hundreds of absentee ballot request forms to eligible voters who are in jail and awaiting trial, so that their voices can be heard and their constitutional right to vote can be recognized. Nevada has made great strides in the last 5 years to increase access to the ballot box and encourage people to vote with voting rights restoration, tribal polling locations, and vote by mail. Passing AB 286 would continue to put Nevada forward as a leader in democracy, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sarah Rojas, S-A-R-A-H-R-O-J-A-S, and I'm an organizer with Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains. I'm calling today in support of AB 286. All of the people being held pre-trial today have a constitutional right to vote, and Nevada has a responsibility to all eligible constituents to protect that right. I urge you to support AB 286. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jonathan Bush, spelled JONATHAN-BUSH. I'm calling on behalf of myself to testify in support of AB 286. My family and I are lifelong voters participating in every election, volunteering for candidates, and fighting for issues we believe in. It wasn't until this bill was first introduced that I learned voters in jail still retain the right to vote. And in my opinion, if a voter is still eligible to vote, they should have access to their constitutional right to do so. If voters can vote out of state or overseas, we can make sure that voters right here in Nevada can do the same. Please support AB 286. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Alvin Chan, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Native Voters Alliance Nevada. We work to build political power for Nevada's 28 federally recognized tribes and the urban natives living in Washoe and Clark counties. Simply put, if you have the constitutional right to vote, you should be given the opportunity and afforded the same opportunity that everyone has to vote. For those reasons, for our democracy, we urge strong support of AB 286. Thank you so much, and I would like to say thank you to Assemblywoman Miller for introducing such important legislation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. We like to thank the beautiful, brilliant Assemblywoman Brittany Miller for sponsoring this bill. I just want to support this bill in a comment that the ASL people who are jailed get the accommodations. You all know that even though NVEs is active, people who are American Sign Language speakers cannot read English language. It has to be ASL. So with that said, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Davis Hushkon, DAVISHUSKON. I am the Executive Assistant with the Las Vegas Indian Center, and we are in strong support of AB 286. We believe here that each voice, each vote counts. So for everyone in the Native community, it means that their vote equals their voice. And we are in strong support. Thank you.
Are there any additional callers in support?
Yes, Chair. If with the caller, the last three digits 080, you please press *6. Again, caller with the last three digits 080, you can unmute.
Oh, my apologies. I wasn't testifying in support, so I'll wait.
We're still on support. If there are any other callers, patch them through.
Hi, my name is Shanika Cooper, and I am calling in support of AB 286 simply because it is our human right to vote. Thank you and have a great day.
It's asking me to unmute, but I don't want to speak in support. Something wrong?
Our apologies, Chair. Please stand by.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Quentin Savoie. That is Quentin, S like Sam, A like Apple, V like Victor, WOIR. I'm calling on behalf of the NAACP Las Vegas as the president of the local branch, and we are in support of Assembly Bill 286. The NAACP was founded to advance and protect civil rights, including but not limited to voting rights. It's important that in this time that we continue to see ongoing threats to our democracy and the rollback of our civil rights, that Nevada continue to be on the forefront of expanding and protecting democracy, especially for those who commit small crimes that have nothing to do with their ability to be able to vote and articulate who runs our country. We deeply appreciate Assemblywoman Miller for being pro-democracy, a democracy champion, and making sure that this gets through. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other callers?
You're unmuted.
Good afternoon. This is Aisha Goins with the NAACP, AESHAGOINS. I'm calling to support this bill. I'm also calling in solidarity with Silver State Voices and Mass Liberation, and we appreciate Assemblywoman Miller for presenting this bill. We urge the committee to support. Thank you.
Chair Orenshaw and members of the committee, my name is Linda Stout, LIMDA a volunteer member of the Sierra Club's Legislative Committee. On behalf of the Sierra Club, the world's largest environmental volunteer organization, and our more than 30,000 members and supporters statewide, I am speaking in support of AB 286. Access to voting is a prerequisite for a functional democracy. Prior to 2020, Nevada was ranked 9th, the states with the most disenfranchised voters. Because of a 2019 voting rights law, tens of thousands of previously incarcerated Nevadans have had their voting rights restored and are eligible to vote. In fact, many detained individuals who are presently awaiting sentences in jail and detention facilities are also eligible to vote. The problem is the very few actually do. Access to voting registration, pre-registration, and absentee ballots will allow our soon-to-be 18-year-olds even to register to vote and cast their ballot. For these reasons, we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
If you have just joined us and would like to testify in support of AB 296, press star 9 to take your place in the queue. 286. There are no more callers at this time.
Thank you. At this time, we will open it up. Come on up. We have one more in person here in Carson.
Thank you, Senator Daly. John Pirro, testifying on behalf of the Clark County Public Defender's Office and the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. We firmly believe that how we treat people when they're in custody affects how they return when they're out of custody, and maintaining the right to vote and be an active part of our democracy is important, and so we strongly urge support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we will open up testimony for people in opposition here in Carson City. State your name and please proceed.
Thank you. Vice Chair and Committee, my name is Lynn Chapman, which you both know, and I'm State Treasurer for the Independent American Party. We oppose this bill because even though a person is innocent until proven guilty, once they have voted while awaiting their court appearance, you can't remove their vote if they are later convicted of a crime. If they are convicted of a crime, they have then canceled out their victim's vote. The Boston Herald wrote an editorial in 2019. The editorial mentions a horrific incident which would not apply here, but the imagery is what is important. Quote, apart from the shocking imagery of the wretched marathon bomber casting a vote, we must ask ourselves if citizens who have no respect for the laws of the land should have the hand in their authorship, unquote. I have some friends who have a daughter who is currently at Parr Boulevard, and she's been there for a year and a half. She was there during the last election. She had not had a hearing of any sort. She had not been convicted, but she was there for murder. But she had not been convicted, so she's presumed innocent. So would she have the right to vote? And would she have been able to cast a vote? What if there was a ballot question on the ballot at that time that had something to do with murder or assault and battery even? Would she be able to vote on that and have a say in that, even though she was there for murder? So it's just something to think about. But these are some of the things that we've thought about, and that's why we're not for this bill. Please vote no. Thank you.
Chairman, Assistant Chairman and the committee, Senator Daly and the rest of the committee. Barbara Jones, for the record. I am also in opposition to 286. I agree with the previous testimony, but I think that this bill presents some very potentially bad, dangerous policies. And I think that the people that are sitting in jail, if they're innocent, some innocent ones, I'm sorry for that, but most of them are, as was mentioned, lawbreakers, and they should not have the right to vote for leadership, lawmakers, when we don't even know the access they have to make an accurate vote. The presenters said they don't know the access necessarily to get registered and all. Well, they may not have the access or the moral capacity, being lawbreakers right now, to vote for people in leadership like yourself. The presenter also said something, and I'm sorry I don't have the bill here. I found out 2 hours ago, and but I think I read online that it was putting polling places in the jails. If I'm wrong, then maybe you can see it in the bill, but that is not a good thing. There's so much chance for manipulation of people in jail and influencing them in certain ways, and I just don't want If I were in jail, I would want my right to vote, but hey, you know, I would be one of the exceptions. Most people that are there for a reason. They broke the law. So please vote against this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City in opposition? Seeing none, broadcasting, is anybody on the phone in opposition?
To testify in opposition of AB 286, press star 9 to take your place in queue.
Hi, good
Sorry, Chair, one moment.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Partee. The last name is P as in Paul, A-R-T as in Tom, E-E. I am against this bill, and if you could just quote Ms. Chapman. She said some wonderful things there, and Ms. Barbara Jones as well. You know, I'm sorry if someone gets in trouble, they get picked up. I've never personally been arrested. But if voting is that important to them, then what they can do is get their mail-in ballot and have it in there. We're bending over backwards to get people that are lawbreakers here illegally to vote, and it's wrong. I'm sorry. Do the right thing. Don't get arrested. And it's not a taking away our democracy. We live in a constitutional republic, and if you want to abide by that constitutional republic, don't break the laws. Simple. Thanks.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
My name is Ellen Gifford. AB 286 seeks to conduct voting in prisons. It seeks to utilize the statutes that apply to our military personnel and their families to accomplish that, commingling the terms covered voter, military ballots, and jails. People who are in jail are not electors, and yet this bill refers to them as such. In fact, the Constitution of the state of Nevada addresses electors in key sentences as follows in Section 1. All citizens of the United States not laboring under the disabilities named in this Constitution of the age of 18 years and upwards shall be entitled to vote for all officers that now or hereafter may be elected by the people, and upon all questions submitted to the electors at such election, provided that no person who has been or may be convicted of treason or felony in any state or territory of the United States, unless restored to civil rights, shall be entitled to the privilege of an elector. Any person who is in jail waiting for their trial may be convicted of a felony. Therefore, this bill violates the Constitution of the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello, legislators. My name is Leslie Quinn, and I oppose AB 286, not because non-felons don't have a constitutional right to vote, but because many non-felons in jail are awaiting conviction to go to prison as a felon. There could be a mass murderer, pedophile, sex trafficker, or drug trafficker in jail awaiting conviction that is currently labeled as a non-felon. Also, if a non-felon is pending conviction, that would commit them as a felon. Then they would not be allowed to vote. Then there is the taxpayer dollars this bill would spend putting polling places at the jail sites, or the security breach caused to allow an offender to come out to vote. Currently, those in county or city jails can vote on a paper ballot via their social worker, who then can hand their votes in, or someone from the ROV can come pick these ballots up so that they are counted. AB 286 also creates, well, as I said, the security breach not only for the jail staff, but also for the public, the way it's laid out in this bill. It is interesting to note that AB 286 pushes for non-felons' constitutional rights, while the rights of all Americans and Nevadans, like the First Amendment right and the Second Amendment right, are being stripped away at every turn of this 82nd legislation term. This is quite backwards, in my opinion. I asked my legislators, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller and Senator Marilyn Dondero-Loop, to stand with me and oppose AB 286. Help keep Nevadans safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
If you have just joined and would like to testify in opposition, of AB 286, press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
GYRUSHOJJACY. First of all, I don't see this as giving people the incentive to follow the law. Second, only 2% of the people support this bill, according to a poll done by Nellis. And out of those 2%, it was 7 people that casted their opinions. Number 3, this is all about changing the outcome of an election. It simply means that if you will get these people to vote, it will likely increase the chance of certain people getting elected. This is why some people want to do away with the Electoral College or even with the Senate, as a matter of fact. So I urge you all not to support this bill, and I will ditto the previous and future callers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is that any other
There are
callers?
no more callers at this time.
Excellent. Thank you.
No
So at this time, we'll move to neutral testimony here in Carson City.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and Committee. Excuse me, Jamie Rodriguez for the record, Washoe County Registrar of Voters. I'll be brief. I know you have a whole nother bill to hear. Just want to thank Assemblywoman Miller for working with us on the bill that's in front of you. As was mentioned in her presentation, we already allow for a program working with our local sheriff for inmates in the Washoe County Jail to be able to vote. This bill does do the expansion of allowing for ease, so if we do have Washoe County residents who are potentially in a jail in another county, we'll be able to work and make a agreement with those other jails to allow them to be able to vote as well as the provision that allows for family members to bring in IDs. In the 2022 election, we had a total of 40 individuals request the right to vote in the general election. 10 were actually eligible. The 30 that were ineligible were not eligible because they weren't registered voters and did not have IDs. Some of them did not have Nevada IDs at all and still would not have been eligible. Some were simply not arrested with their IDs, and therefore they were not at the jail for us to be able to register them. So that would be able to expand those eligible voters to be able to actually be able to be processed going forward if the bill were able to go forward. So thank you very much.
You have a question? So in relation to this bill with the previous bill, so this would include the electronic registration and various things. So if they didn't have their ID, but they actually just didn't have it with them, but they had one, then they would be able to register to vote through the electronic system.
Jamie Rodriguez for the record, that's correct, Senator. So the difference between the Senate version and what's in front of you today, this bill does include the expansion of ease specifically for individuals who are in local jails. And with that, also the ability for family members to bring IDs to those who are incarcerated in the jail or I'm sorry, detained within the jail. That prison jail difference, I apologize, who are detained in the jail, they can bring them their ID. So if they are detained without their ID, it can be brought in so that they'd be able to go through that process of registering and being eligible to vote. So whether that's through the EASE program or just through that online extended registration. So if we're still doing paper ballots, we would still be able to register them, bring them their paper ballot up at the jail, and still be able to process them.
And thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure. On the other bill, as I recall, and I was looking at it a few minutes ago, it just says everybody shall establish a plan, and then they'll confer with the Secretary of State, provide everybody the information on that. They could include a lot of those things in that plan, I'm assuming, as well.
Jamie Rodriguez for the record. So for the EASE program, and I would defer to legal on the off chance that I am misspeaking, but I do believe it does require that statutory outline of exactly who is eligible, because it is essentially an expansion of the federal UACAVA program. And so that ADA eligibility that the legislature expanded last session, the Secretary of State's office is able to do that through that statutory authority, and therefore in SB 162 it doesn't actually stipulate that those who are detained in jail have access to that program.
So even if they wanted to in a plan or whatever, that bill would not authorize it.
Again, I would
The
defer.
162.
That I will defer to legal.
Thank you.
Hello, committee. Ashley Garza Kennedy representing Clark County, and I'll ditto a lot of the comments that Washoe County and Ms. Rodriguez had stated. We currently, with our Clark County Detention Center, have a system in place to allow people who are currently detained, who are eligible and would like to vote, an opportunity to do so. We have liaisons that work from the elections department that coordinate with the detention center to make that happen. So we appreciate the Assemblywoman and her work on this bill, and with the addition of the Nevada East system, it's a really simple system that is very easy to implement. So we appreciate her work. Thank you.
Anybody else in neutral testimony here in Carson? Okay, seeing none, broadcast. Anybody on the phone in neutral?
To testify neutral to AB 286, press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. With that, if the Assemblywoman has any closing comments, we will hear them now. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I just wanted to reiterate, based on some of the opposition, that again, this is in no way granting rights that are not already provided to Nevadans to be a qualified elector, nor are we making the polling places, making the jails polling places by any means. All of that was amended out in the first House. And I would also like to add that there was much wider support that I know there's conflicts with timing and scheduling. Even your own dais has emptied out right now for people running to other committees. But in the Assembly side, as I had stated in the presentation, I spent a lot of time working with law enforcement at the, not just at the state, but at the county and local levels as well, and that they actually were the first ones to come to the table in support on the Assembly side. So it seems they weren't available today, but I want you to know that this was made in conjunction with law enforcement and had their support on the Assembly side as well. So with that, I thank you for hearing this bill, and
And thank you, and we all understand deadline week in the legislature, so.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 286, and we'll open the hearing on, you guessed it, Assembly Bill 242.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Assemblywoman Tracy Brown May for the record. We appreciate the opportunity to present Assembly Bill 242 to you today. Joining me in this presentation is Mr. Mark Volashin with the Secretary of State's office, so he's here to provide technical information and follow through on the bill, should you have questions. This bill comes from the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. In that committee, in its final work session on August 29, 2022, voted to draft this bill. And I am honored to be able to be here to present the information that comes from that interim committee. Specifically, that committee moved to require the county election administrators, including county clerks and election board officers, to be trained on how to operate accessible voting systems compliant with the ADA passed in 1990 in order to assist voters who have difficulty using the voting systems, require a minimum of 2 accessible voting systems at a voting site, and provide for the establishment of more than 2 accessible voting systems at a voting site if deemed necessary by the county clerk, and to require ballots that are cast in person at polling sites to be cast by a voting machine. Those are the 3 A, B, and C's that were in the final report of the interim committee. Bulletin 23-9, published by the Legislative Council Bureau in November of 2022. The bill that you have in front of you is the first reprint, Assembly Bill 242, as was presented by Mr. Volashin and amendments in the first House. So specifically, the committee received presentations from 2 statewide advocacy organizations regarding access to voting for people with disabilities. As a lifetime disability advocate, they asked me to carry this bill for you, so that's why I'm here today. The ADA dictates a number of provisions for accessibility, and that law is now more than 30 years old. We still have not successfully implemented many of the accessibility provisions that were identified in the 1990 law, as many of our buildings still have only accessibility with stairs. So that we have a long way to go. Today, approximately 25% of our population identify as having a disability, and that means 25% of our population may experience barriers to voting. It's incumbent upon us to eliminate as many barriers as possible, as voting, as you heard, I know, is integral to our democracy. This bill language, specifically, existing law provides that voting in any election conducted under Title 24 of NRS must be on printed ballots. This bill changes the word from printed to appear to allow for electronic formatting. Sections 5, 9, and 15 of this bill prohibit the use of paper ballots when voting in person at the polls in an election in this state, and instead require that all votes cast in person at a polling place be cast using a mechanical voting system. Mr. Volashin will get further into detail on that if you'd like. And then further, mail ballots can still be accepted at a polling place. Several sections of this bill also make conforming changes to require the use of a mechanical voting system when voting in person. And sections 6 and 17 require that each polling place have at least 2 accessible voting booths and additional voting booths if determined necessary by the county clerk or city clerk in that specific area. Sections 6 and 17 also require each county clerk, city clerk, and all election board officers to complete training in the use of the voting booths and specifically equipped voting devices in order to assist such voters. We are happy to stand for questions if you like. There are a number of accessibility features. We do have accessible voting in Nevada. This helps us to just make sure that it's accessible to all of our folks. Thank you.
Okay. You have questions? We have questions.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Assemblywoman Brown May. So I've received some emails that say that this bill is directly trying to attack those counties in Nevada that in the last election used paper ballots. So if you could just address that, thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for your question. Assemblywoman Tracy Brown May, for the record. That is not the intention of this bill, as it does literally come out of the interim committee for accessibility. The bill was crafted to meet accessibility and bring us further into compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Unfortunately, paper ballots are a barrier for many people who do have disabilities for lots of reasons. So there is a paper ballot system that currently exists. this mechanical identification doesn't eliminate paper, it just eliminates the way paper is used in the balloting system. Maybe Mr. Volashin could go further into detail.
Thank you, Assemblywoman, and thank you, Senator. Vice Chair, through you to the Senator. Mark Volashin, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, for the record. To address your question specifically, no, not an attack on the counties and the processes by which they conducted the 2022 election. As the Assemblywoman had mentioned, again, this had come out of the interim committee. The paper marking, the ballot marking devices that were referenced and included in the amendment specifically relate to a type of system, a mechanical voting system that's currently in use in 2 of our counties, in Carson and Lander counties. But many of the counties are actually looking to potentially incorporate this, including Clark, Washoe, and maybe some others in the years ahead, over the next 5 to 10 years or so. Certainly there's some ongoing discussion about that. So it's not to prevent an existing county clerk or registrar from conducting an election outside of the statutes. Our statutes already allow them to make a number of decisions, and all of them, of course, comply with our laws. This really is specific to cleaning up the processes to make sure that votes can be cast in a manner that supports accessibility across our state, and that we continue to look at methods to reduce any confusion or decrease that accessibility.
So just a quick follow-up, Chair. So in sections 5, 9, and 15, voting at any election regulated by this title must be by mechanical voting system, by mail ballots, or by any other system approved by the Secretary of State or specifically authorized by law, except as otherwise provided in subsection 3. All votes cast in person at a polling place at any election must be cast using a mechanical voting system and not by the marking of a paper ballot by hand. So could you just explain that to me a little bit? Thank you.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Tracy Brown May for the record. Thank you for the question. So as I did the research relative to this, Mr. Volashin was instrumental in educating me. There is a system whereby you can mark a paper ballot that is fed into a machine that reads it mechanically. So that is a mechanical system, as opposed to a piece of paper that's used as your only ballot.
So last one. So this bill would not stop counties from using paper ballots if they chose to. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Senator Mark Volashin, for the record. There are, I imagine, types of paper ballots that would be outlawed beyond the ones that the Assemblywoman mentioned that are specific to be used in a ballot marking device, that system where you put the paper in and it allows you to read it. The bill also does not prevent the use of mail ballots, so that if again, even down there in subsection 3 of section 5, where it talks about if there's a stack of mail ballots at a polling location, those paper ballots could also be used. But there are, I imagine, types of paper ballots that would be prevented from use by the passage of this bill.
And so would those be the type that were used in the last election, the November 2022 election by some counties in Nevada?
Senator Mark Volashin, for the record, thank you for the question. As I recall, in Nye County specifically, I believe they just used what was covered in subsection 5, and I can confirm that and let you know that they used mail ballots that were printed out and at the polling location for use, not a unique additional style, as I recall. But I can confirm and let you know.
I'm just trying to ensure that those counties that prefer to use paper ballots are still able to do so. I certainly don't want to impede anybody's right who has a disability to vote, but that was the concern in the emails I received.
And thank you. And I had similar questions. Obviously, I can read the words and it says on that. And I understand a mechanical reading device of a otherwise marked ballot, but it says they can't do it by hand. So how are they marking it if they're not marking it by hand?
Thank you for the question, Senator Mark Volashin, for the record. So it does allow, again, if it is a mail ballot, those can still be filled out by hand. Outside of that process, the the paper ballots that are used in the ballot marking devices are ultimately, it's called a ballot marking device because when you put the paper in, it shows on the screen what your options are, and that enables you to select them. And it eliminates the risk of a pen marking, kind of scratching multiple circles and those sorts of things. So I believe, to answer your question, that again, if you use a ballot marking device, ultimately the system is marking it, it prints it back out so the voter can see it. That's one method for marking, and then the alternative would be to use a mail ballot, which would still be conducted by hand. But there's other styles used in other states where it's a unique stack of ballots that are not mail ballots. This prevents that from being used.
Right, and I'm thinking, following up, and it's not my business on what Nye County or any other county wants to do as far as the ballots and all this stuff. Everybody's still getting mailed their ballot. They're required to do that, whether they like it or not. They send them out. People are able to vote those ballots, mail them back in, or vote those ballots and drop them off. And obviously they use a tabulator or whatever to count those, I believe. But if they wanted to use paper ballots for otherwise in-person voting, and have people mark them by hand and not use a machine, this would prohibit it.
Thank you, Tracy Brown May, for the record. Senator, that you are correct that this is the mail ballots that are already being sent to people would be the paper ballot that would be accepted at the polling location. And they are still accepted, so it would decrease the duplicative efforts relative to that, and then it would utilize the electronic systems that exist, the mechanical systems that exist throughout the state that are currently being utilized to ensure accessibility for people with disabilities throughout the state.
Understood. Separate question, and I know we're dancing around it a little bit, but if Nye County, what their intention was to use paper ballots and not have them counted by machines. That was their intent, and this would eliminate that, and I think that's where the concern's coming from. I'm not saying they're right, I'm not saying they're wrong, I'm saying each county should be able to do what they do. They were able to do that before, and if they don't want to use the machine ballots, they can get it done in time. I suppose that's up to them. I think it's foolishness, but nevertheless, their choice. Even under that system that Nye County was trying, they were still required to have at least one electronic voting machine for people with disabilities and various things, regardless of what they wanted for the access. So the access for people with disabilities and various things was still there. I know they can bring people in to help if you can't see various things, and any other elector can help that person, and a lot of times poll workers do that in every, well, I've only voted in Washoe County, but nevertheless, I know it's available in all of the counties. So I just wanted to be clear on what this does and what it doesn't do, and some of what Nye County intended to do would be prohibited under this. That's just what I wanted to make clear. And that also wanted to make clear that regardless of what some county may want to do regarding paper ballots, they have to have this accessibility and the electronic voting machines, at least one in each polling place, as I recall the discussion over that was required by the state. Is that correct?
Thank you, Senator. Tracy Brown May, for the record. That is correct. It is essential that as we have an increasing population of people with disabilities in our state and across our country, that we ensure equity and access for all of our people with disabilities. Many times, if we don't experience a physical barrier to whatever life throws at you, we don't realize how many barriers exist in everything that we do. From the one step it takes to get into someone's home to the one step it takes to get out. And entry to our buildings, and automatic doors that don't work, and water fountains that don't dispense water, batteries that need to be recharged for electronic wheelchairs, for the way that people who are non-ambulatory have to find mobility to access their community. Unfortunately, the barriers we face in our society are enormous. And so to be able to encourage folks with disabilities to have access to voting and ensure that they have an equitable opportunity to be present in every county in our state is really the goal for what we're attempting. Understand that there are a lot of counties in Nevada, and they all do things differently. When we create equity and a sustainable system that is uniform across our state. You encourage people to be able to move across this vast territory that we love called Nevada. If we are not equitable in the systems that we build, then we tell people with disabilities, we don't want you in our community, you don't have access here. And so realistically, developing this type of system in uniformity and ensuring that mechanical options exist for people with disabilities to have access and that people are trained in how to utilize those ensures privacy in voting and true access. So we just want to make sure that that happens. Although I hear everything that you're saying, we're happy to continue to work on this measure, knowing that it comes out of the interim committee. I'm sure that we will continue to discuss these issues as we go forward.
Thank you. Any further questions? With that, we'll have you guys step back and we'll take testimony in support here in Carson City.
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, Doug Goodman, DOUG-GOODMAN, founder, executive director of Nevadans for Election Reform. I think we all agree that elections must be administered in the most efficient manner possible. To ensure statewide efficiency, standardization of process and procedures are critical. This is true for any process in any organization. The importance of standardization has been upheld by this body with the funding for implementation of top-down voter registration. The importance of standardization is also strengthened by the introduction of Senate Bill 54 this session that will allow the Secretary of State to develop, with the input of all stakeholders, standardized procedures for the election administration in the counties. This bill in no way impacts voters choosing to use the mail ballot to vote. Those who do not trust the voting machines can use the mail ballot, which is a paper ballot, and drop off at the polling location if they want to be sure their vote is collected. The amendment that was adopted by the Assembly allows mail ballots to be completed at the polls, as well as ballot marking devices, as long as the ballot is counted mechanically. There are those who will say that AB 242 violates county autonomy. This would be true if Nevada were a home rule state. However, Nevada is a Dillon's rule state. Cities and county governments only have as much power as the state legislature is willing to cede to them. Changing this is another issue for another bill. Efficiency in election administration is paramount. By further standardizing the voting process in Nevada, the legislature will be taking a major step in ensuring Nevada maintains its leading role in election administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in support here in Carson? Seeing none, broadcast. Anybody on the phone in support of Assembly Bill 242?
Testify in support of AB 242. Press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. My name is Dayla Gibson, DAELA-GIBSON, and I'm speaking on behalf of Planned Parenthood Marmonte, a member of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. We support this bill and ditto other statements in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Aria Flores, ARIAFLORES, and I'm here on behalf of Chief of Nevada with the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition, and we're in support of AB 242. This bill prioritizes accessibility, efficiency, and sustainability in our electoral process. Embracing technology allows us to streamline voting, resulting in a faster and more accurate result. Unlike paper ballot counting, which is prone to human error and causes significant delays, AB 242 ensures ballots are counted by state and federally approved systems, promoting a more efficient and trustworthy electoral system. Additionally, this bill recognizes the importance of accessibility by requiring a polling location have at least a minimum of 2 voting booths specifically designed for elderly and disabled voters. During my time as an observer at the Centennial Hills polling location here in Las Vegas, I witnessed a significant amount of utilization of these accessible voting machines, with 6 to 7 voters using them within a given hour. It is crucial that every polling location provides at least 2 voting booths for elderly and disabled voters. This bill reflects our state's commitment to inclusivity and equitable representation. By supporting this bill, we demonstrate our dedication as a state to a fair, efficient, and inclusive elections. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Emily Prasad Zamora. That's PERSAUD-ZAMORA. Vice Chair Daley and committee members, thank you so much for the time, and I'm here to express our support for AB 242. We support any bill we feel expands access to the electoral process, especially any community that does not feel heard or seen in the electoral process. Accessibility is a vital component of inclusivity, and it requires an unwavering commitment to fostering meaningful participation and equal access to information and services for all individuals. One of the key provisions in this bill mandates a minimum provision of 2 voting booths for individuals using wheelchairs, the elderly, or voters with disabilities. This requirement serves as the baseline, and clerks are empowered to add extra booths as necessary. The bill further requires clerks and all election board of officers to complete a comprehensive training to ensure they are able to assist voters who are elderly or voters with disability in the use of voting booths and devices, which we think is an amazing idea and will help further equitable election processes in Nevada. We urge the support on AB 242. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ashley Cooper, ASHLEECOOPER, and I'm the Manager of Advocacy and Government Affairs for Opportunity Village. We're a Nevada nonprofit that employs, empowers, and serves people with disabilities. We support accessibility and universal design at all levels of public life and are in support of AB 242. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Daley and committee members. My name is Mary Janet Ramos, and I'm the campaign manager for All Voters Local Action Nevada, an organization that exposes and dismantles threat to voter freedom to make voting safe, fair, and accessible for all. All Voters Local Action is also a proud member of the Let Nevadans Vote Coalition. We are here in strong support of AB 242. Voting is a fundamental right and the cornerstone of our democracy. Historically, voters with a disability have faced barriers to the ballot box, and AB 242 ensures that every voter has an equal opportunity to exercise this right and that they can vote independently and in a confidential manner, whether it's voting in person, voting using a mail-in ballot, or voting using the Nevada ACE system. Protecting and promoting voting rights for individuals with disabilities not only upholds the principles of equality and inclusion, but also strengthens the overall integrity and legitimacy of our democratic process. Thank you for your time, and we urge you to support AB 242.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello, Chair Daley and rest of the committee members. My name is Brian Harris, and I'm an organizer at the Hope Progress. We are also a member of the Nevada Vote Coalition, and we would like to testify in support of this bill. The E-system is a great tool that will allow the growth of democracy. A thriving democracy relies on everyone being able to freely express their right to vote, and that's where the E-system comes in. The E-system can also tackle the barriers that have held back marginalized communities from participating fully in elections. It is designed to be user-friendly and inclusive, breaking down the info and resource gaps that have kept some folks from engaging. By providing easy access to vital information, promoting transparency, and encouraging voter turnout, this system can make our democracy stronger and more vibrant. Please support the E242.
Before you hang up, caller, could you spell your name for us, please?
Oh, yeah. BRIANHARRIS.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
You're unmuted. Caller, last three digits, 2320. You're unmuted.
I'm so sorry about that. Good afternoon, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Alvin Chan, spelled Alvin, last name Chan, Chan. I am the Deputy Executive Director for Native Voters Alliance of Nevada. We work to build political power for Nevada's 28 federally recognized tribes, as well as the urban natives living in Washoe and Clark counties. Today, we're testifying in support of AB 242. We are proud of Nevada's status as a leader in voting rights across the country, and we think AB 242 would only extend that. We support AB 242 as it standardizes and improves accessibility across the state by establishing a minimum of 2 voting booths for ADA folks per polling location. In the course of speaking to thousands of voters across the state in the 2022 cycle, we heard a number of complaints and issues about accessibility, particularly for those voters with disabilities not in major population centers. AB 242 will ensure that accessible booths are available in every polling location and poll workers are properly trained in the use of them. For those reasons, I urge you to vote in favor of AB 242, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. So this time we'll take testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 242. Go ahead and state your name and proceed.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Committee. My name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm State Treasurer of the Independent American Party. We are opposed to this bill, but there is one good part, and that part is the addition of voting machines for the disabled and elderly who need them. We are concerned that paper ballots will be prohibited in this bill. The use of paper ballots may sound old-fashioned, but election security experts note that paper ballots provide transparency, security, and reliability. Paper ballots also can be safely recounted in cases of contested results. Counting paper ballots in public provides transparency. Paper ballots can't be hacked, rigged, pre-programmed, break down, or malfunction. I actually had a machine I was voting on change my vote not once, not twice, but 3 times right in front of me. I called out that the machine changed my vote, and so they put me on another machine. I told the people in charge that they needed to remove that machine, but I noticed that they didn't remove the machine, and they had other people put on that malfunctioning machine to vote. A paper ballot would not have changed my vote. Every county is different, and this bill eliminates local government decisions in their elections. And trust in our voting systems have dropped dramatically. Most people I speak with don't like the machines. Please vote no on AB 242. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katrin Ivanov, Ivanoff, aka Mrs. Fixit. I reside in Assembly District 42 and Senate District 9. I wanted to talk about people don't trust elections anymore, and with us getting rid of paper ballots, that would only get worse. And I hope that that is not your intent. Using accessibility for people with disabilities is a Trojan horse to get rid of paper ballot, which would be a sure way to prove if election was tabulated correctly. If the presenter of this bill truly wanted to help people with disabilities, they could have drafted a bill that does exactly that. There is no need to combine 2 very different issues into one bill. I was part of the hand count in Nye County, in which was proven in the hand count was just to check if the machines were correct. And there was a proof that machines counted wrong, and the people counted correct, and it was a very good process. There were 3 different people counting, and at the end of without talking to each other, there was camera at all times, there was LCU representatives, and at the end, if the 3 numbers are not matching, then this pile goes to another 3 people to count to make sure what's going on, because people get tired, people get fatigued, and nobody was trying to do anything nefarious. But as you go in, it is a tedious work to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes you forget, you mark one and mark a second time. So when you get different numbers, they would have somebody else check the work until 3 different people that don't talk to each other get the same numbers. So we have in paper ballots that would assure fair elections in case something happened with the machines and we have to check what's going on. Or if the count is super close and one of the people wants to contest, this is not a partisan issue. We all want fair elections. If one of the people want to contest, with the paper ballots, we just ensure more secure and fair election, especially with the eroding in our elections.
And if you can start to wrap up, you're past your 2 minutes.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to speak longer than 2 minutes. And I know it's very hard work you guys are doing, so thank you, appreciate it. I really hope you vote no the bill the way it is. I love the Disability Act, disability provision of it. If you just keep that one without getting rid of paper ballots, that would be lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Hi, Barbara Jones again for the record. I'm just struck with how extremely important you 2 people are. It's come down to 2 people, and 2 people may be against this bill. When I consider, and I've watched this bill the whole time, and I just found out about the hearing myself 2 hours ago, and I may start shaking. It's so important. I've tried to alert people. What happened in the assembly on this bill, we had huge opposition. If you check the chart on the bill, it's almost all brown. There's a little tiny sliver of brown is an opposition. And we had leaders, some from Las Vegas, and they canceled the hearing. And here we are with 2 left and 2 senators. So why it's so important, what they said, this is critical to be standardized. It is very dangerous to be standardized statewide because especially regarding the machines, the information is going into not just the Nevada base, your private voter registration and information can be shared with any agency anywhere in the world. It also specifically on REMS says that it can be shared with Health and Human Services. What does your personal information have to do with your health? And it's going in, and this is top down, and the Secretary of State is responsible for implementing the 3rd phase this year, 2023, to the tune of $300 million. And this bill, you'll never see the REMS. I've told you about it, I believe, before, but I have a sheet where you can check it yourself. I checked the Gardner group that was consulted last time when it was put in place. I researched that. It took me back and back and back, and the vendor's been chosen. It's a national vendor with international connections. And the people that are internationally involved, I don't agree with. I think that's very dangerous. And
if you can
they said
get close
that
to wrapping up, you're almost at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So
just check page 54, I'm sorry, 5. It says that if you vote in person on a paper ballot, you can't do that. You have to vote on machines. So basically, it forces you on the machines. and there's no choice anymore for the counties. And 54 is another one that's going to be implementing it, the VREMS project. You won't see VREMS since. Thank you for your time, sir. I really appreciate it. I will leave this. Please, I beg, plead, vote no and stop this for the people in this state. Thank you very much. I'll leave this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else here in opposition in Carson City? Seeing none, broadcasting, anybody on the phones in opposition to Assembly Bill 242?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 242, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
CYRUSHOJJACY. I oppose this bill because it is more likely to discourage the use of paper ballots, ditto the previous and future callers. I've heard a lot of claims for years that Russian collusion hacked the 2016 election, so wouldn't this bill make things even worse? They've done recent polls showing that about 45% of even Democrats don't even support the outcomes of recent elections, and it's almost all with Republicans. So therefore, I urge you not to support this bill. Thank you so much. I believe in a more honest system that puts greater emphasis on paper ballots. Yield.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. My name is Jim DeGraffenried. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man in opposition to AB 242 on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party. AB 242 is an attack on local control. The importance of local control is regularly invoked when defending irregular election practices in Clark County, such as excluding observers, not following publicly posted schedules, or refusing to allow cameras to live stream the ballot counting process as other counties do. The importance of local control over elections was used as the reason to not address each of these real-life issues. AB 242 infringes on the right of voters to determine what kind of election system they find trustworthy. Nevada's counties, like our residents, are diverse and varied. The system for Esmeralda County, with 617 registered voters, can and perhaps should be radically different from Clark County, where there are over 1.3 million active voters. That's not for this body to decide. That's for the voters in that county to decide. AB 242 attempts to disenfranchise rural voters by preventing them from directing their local county representatives to implement a voting system that they find most fair and responsive to their needs. The Nevada Legislature has passed laws requiring that every voter in this state be sent a paper ballot in the mail, whether they want it or not. It makes zero sense to say that paper ballots are so awesome that every voter should have one sent to their home, but at the same time, paper ballots are so dangerous that they must be prohibited in official polling places. Nevada's election laws and resulting inability to provide timely and transparent results are already the laughingstock of the nation. Please do not continue to embarrass us by passing further contradictory laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Hello, my name is Lorena Cardenas. Regarding this bill, I completely anything else provides the reliability, security, and transparency. Hand-counted paper ballots are considered the only paper ballots proof of the voter's intent. I know paper ballots can be safely recounted in case of a contested result. It provides a paper trail. Counting paper ballots in public provides 100% oversight and transparency. So I don't understand why we would try to eliminate this. We would try to eliminate these type of procedures in place instead of, eliminating the things that would further provide more transparency. And unlike computer voting systems, paper ballots can't break down or malfunction. Paper ballots are not programmed secretly by unaccountable private corporations. Paper ballots cannot be hacked or rigged. And it leads everyone to wonder why you're working on this bill, if this is what can happen. And the old stuffed ballot boxes, yes, stuffing ballot boxes and rigging elections on a large scale is possible, but it is hard work and it's easy to detect, whereas electronic voting allows the same crime to be committed with just one stroke of a key without detection. So I urge you to please not pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits, 280. Please press *6 to unmute. Sorry, Chair, was having trouble with that caller. Moving to the next.
Okay. Now it let me. It took me 3 times. Oh, hi. My name is Stephanie Kinsley, Kinsley. I'm calling in opposition. Forward witness to the most stolen election ever in history. And now we are suffering the repercussions of what happens when we don't have secure elections that are of the people and by the people. I strongly encourage every person to look at any candidate or any politician who supports making cheating for voting easier. So any person who is in support of getting rid of paper ballots, they're basically just letting us know that they are supporting fraudulent elections. They want to cheat their way to the top, and they can't do it on their own. I'm urging every person listening to this to take a stand for their country. Take a stand for America. Take a stand for Nevada. Do what is right. Oppose this bill and oppose anybody who supports it. Anybody who supports this bill is corrupt and must be addressed. That is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Next caller, please.
My name is Ellen.
Hello.
Go ahead, please.
My name is Ellen Gifford, and I've carefully read all of this bill. And what stands out to me is that AB 242 mandates that mechanical voting systems be used for all elections in all counties, districts, precincts, and cities across the state of Nevada. Abolishes the use of paper ballots, including provisional ballots, for all elections for all time. Fully entrenches as a permanent fixture in Nevada's election process what was supposed to be, because of COVID, a temporary emergency alternative, the hugely unpopular vote by mail ballot. It mandates revisions to 12 city charters in Nevada to accommodate this bill, and it withholds any financial assistance for these legislatively mandated expenses so that the counties have to find a way to pay for what it is in this bill. Since the election process belongs to the people, I am curious to know if the author or the sponsors have had any discussion with the people about how this bill would forever change their election process, not to mention what the projected cost would be for implementing these unsolicited mandates. I think the answer to that question has to be no, because on Nellis, I've already heard this mentioned, the people have indicated that they do not want their election process to look the way it's described in this bill, with 97% of them opposing it. Therefore, in unison with these Nevada voters, I also oppose this bill. Since I haven't used my 2 minutes, may I ask a question?
We don't take questions on the testimony.
All right, thank you.
Next caller, please.
Hi, my name is Lisa Partee, P as in Paul, A-R-T as in Tom, E-E. I thought it was very clever to make AB 242 about disabilities. The testimony said that about 40+% of the people have a disability. Well, they can have special handling. But I was a poll worker or watcher. I witnessed during the polls that there was not an issue. There was assistance, plenty of assistance for anyone with any disability. This is the Trojan horse that Ms. Ivanoff mentioned. We knew back in 2020 when the election rules were changed under the quote-unquote COVID emergency that this was the next step. And Mr. Woloshyn evaded Ms. Krasner's questions 3 times and danced around it, which demonstrates the reason for our distrust in our elections. Most Nevadans are against the use of machines and mail-in ballots. Let those who want to use them, but to take away the right of counties to use paper ballots, and I'm not talking about the mail-in ballots, is just another reason we no longer trust our election process. Yes, there can be human error, but with these machines there can be manipulation. This has been demonstrated in the last several elections. This, in addition to SB 404 and counting early votes during early voting and not with public oversight, says everything you need to know. I recall some votes being deleted in Arizona. Ask yourself why, with machines, it now takes a week or more to get the counts. We never had these problems before these machines and mail-in ballots. I second all those in opposition before me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Good evening, Chair Orenshaw and members of the Senate Committee. My name is actually Catherine Nielsen, and I had my hand raised as well as several others during the support testimony, but we never got called on. So am I allowed to proceed?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay. So again, my name is Catherine Nielsen. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I not only presented in the interim committee that was discussed, but I also attended all of the county hearings on this matter as they were discussed, because it does impact a lot of people, not only the disability community. Like stated, there are 40% people with disabilities in Nevada. And if you look around the room, that's probably, or in just the committee, that's at least 2 of you, and it likely impacts your family as well. In the 2020 election, roughly 59.7% of people with disabilities in our state exercised their right to vote. Nationally, about 1 in 9 voters with disabilities encountered difficulties voting in 2020. And I do understand there was other testimony that stated there wasn't difficulties and there was assistance. That was at your location, but everything we hear is completely different. This is double the rate of people without disabilities. Among people with disabilities who voted in person, 18% reported difficulties compared to 10% of people without. And simply put, including those with disabilities should be afforded the opportunity to vote with the equipment in order to do so. There was questions that Senator Daley brought up and stating that we're supposed to have one ADA machine available at each location. And I want to quickly tell you what it's like for when people with disabilities vote in person. And this is across the board a consensus as we collected a lot of data on this. So they're supposed to be able to provide, they're supposed to be provided options such as an ADA voting machine. However, when voting places have separate accessible voting machines, they're not used as frequently as primary voting methods, and therefore poll workers don't spend as much time using the accessible voting equipment, and there's not a lot of training available. A lot of the time, these voting equipments are actually out of order, and as a result of their minimal use, poll workers often forget how to set them up and how to instruct someone with a disability on how to use it, if they haven't even trained on how to use it at all. Wait times to use these machines can be extensive, leading many people to choose not to vote at all. So we applaud you increasing it to 2 ADA machines at each location. Other times, this leads to individuals with disabilities using the non-ADA machines, which really does not allow them to vote at the right that they've been able to give. In order to use these machines, many people with disabilities may need assistance in reading the ballot and in entering their vote, the non-ADA machines. The experience is often that representatives assisting them are not conscious of their volume, and they read the ballot and answers loud enough for others to hear. And I don't know about any of you, but do you want your voting and how you vote read aloud to the room? I don't think so. Many in-person voting practices currently promote the removal, access, and independence and privacy of those with disabilities. We support the amended changes, not only considering the safety and privacy of voting, but the very needs of accessibility for all of our residents in Nevada.
And if you can start to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Broadcasting, any other callers?
Yes, this is Dora Martinez. I'm calling in support. I'm like the prior caller who had my hand raised but never got called on. May I please proceed?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, sir, and the committee, sponsor of the bill, Mark Malashian, and our governor, who happens to be a Republican. I'm Dora Martinez, representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. Most of my members are blind, hard of hearing, using walkers, and wheelchairs. I want to let people understand that throughout the history of this beautiful America, people with disability have been the last, been forgotten, the afterthought. This bill simply put equity in the works. I want to let you know that last time we voted, like what Catherine Nielsen said, people, the machine was not working and the ADA coordinator wasn't there. The person, the volunteer, I had to trust this person to do my vote. And you know what happened afterwards? I was waiting for my bus, which took me 2 hours to go to the vote and 2 hours back home. I got thrown a soda because I voted the people that I voted for, because it was spoken out loud. So please, let's put our differences aside and make this accessible and equity for all, because we are people. We are here and our voice needed to be heard. You cannot do inclusion without disability. No equity without disability. Accessibility without disability. We are here and we want our voice to be heard, and that if that needs to be posted on the voting, let's do it. Because I'm scared to vote now. But you know what? I'm going to keep on going. Because shame on that person for doing that to me. And I don't tell this story to anybody, because it's not something that I'm proud of, the country that did that to me. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Broadcasting, next caller, please.
If you have just joined and would like to testify in opposition to AB 242, press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no more callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. So we'll move to testimony in neutral. Anybody here in Carson City? Being none, broadcasting. Anybody on the phone in neutral?
Testify in neutral to AB 242. Press star 9 to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to testify neutral at this time.
Thank you. With that, Assemblywoman, if you'd like to give some closing remarks.
Thank you. Mark Velashin for the record. I do want to address a couple comments real quick made during some of the opposition. Just to be perfectly clear and for the record, the passage of this bill would not prevent the use of mail ballots, paper ballots, at a polling location for voters to use by hand to cast their ballot on. I also encourage anybody that has concerns about what a ballot marking device is to Google it, or frankly, reach out to the Office of the Secretary of State at nvelect@sos.nv.gov or 684-5705. We would absolutely take time to explain what a ballot marking device is so that they can see that there's a paper ballot that goes into the machine. These are tools that, again, are EAC approved, and the electorate in both Carson and Lander very much appreciate their use. So there's a lot of positivity here that is not restricting anything that I think the electorate would want. Thank you.
Assemblywoman Tracy Brown-May for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill on behalf of the Interim Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. We sincerely appreciate your time and attention on this matter. Really, the goal is about equity for all of our folks to have access to the ballot, to the mail process, to the election process, rather, and that we utilize all of the available resources that they can. Until we have equity in our society where all people are treated equally, irrespective of their ability level, we're not going to be equal. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 242, which brings us to the last item on our agenda today, which is public comment. Anybody here in Carson City for public comment? Seeing none, broadcasting. Anybody on the phone for public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you. With that, we are adjourned.